Welcome to Vegan Finds, where we're going to turn this into this Persian meatballs with sour cherries and pistachios over saffron rice. Stick around, we'll show you how to make it. Okay folks, so tonight's dish we're going to be making Persian meatballs with dried cherries. They are sour cherries, dried sour cherries, pistachios, some cilantro. We got in our little spice dish here celery seed, fennel seed, cumin, and coriander. We're going to toast those up, and obviously our meat's going to be the impossible meat made from plants. And we did a meatloaf with this, and it came out so good. We decided to try and make some meatballs. If you haven't figured out yet, Doris and I, aside from loving Korean food, we like Middle Eastern food too. There's a steady supply of hummus in our fridge at all times, and you know, this is a super duper easy recipe. We're going to toast the spices, grind them up. We're going to chop up our ingredients, and then we're going to just blend it in with the meat, fry them up, make a little sauce. Bada bing, bada boom. We're also going to be making a saffron rice, not rice, but right rice. So we're going to take some plain white rice, and I'm going to add some saffron and some chickenless chicken broth. Make a nice tasty rice that we're going to put the meatballs on top of. So stick around, we'll show you how it's done. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put our impossible meat into a bowl. And I'm using two 12-ounce packages. I wish they made a 1 pound package. That would make things so much easier. But and in this case, they don't. So you make do with what you got. So there we have that. Next, I'm going to chop up our cherries and our pistachios, and those are going to go in the bowl next. Okay, so I have our cherries and our pistachios chopped up. I'm just going to add them to our bowl right now, like so. Next thing we're going to be adding is our cilantro. We're going to be adding a half a cup of cilantro to this. I'm going to try and avoid as much of the stem as possible, although the stems have a lot of flavor. If you make your own stocks, you know, do that. If you're, you know, add the stems, because they really, I almost always chop them up, but in a meatball like this, I think they're going to be too stemmy. But in other dishes like a stew where they can cook down, I chop the stems up fine, and they add a lot of flavor to this. I got some more here, so I'm just going to do a little bit of chopping here. And let's see where we end up. So you want to just basically chop this up so you have about a half a cup. Also, you want to wash cilantro really well, depending on where you get it from. If you get it, you know, from a hydroponic group, then you don't have to worry about it so much. But this particular batch of cilantro, I feel like it was grown on the beach. It was so sandy. A lot of sand in it. I had to rinse it a couple times. And I'm going to keep chopping that. Also to our bowl, we're going to be adding a half a cup of flaxseed. Now, if you don't have flaxseed, you can use a vegan breadcrumb. And since we're gluten-free here, the only gluten-free breadcrumbs that we can find that are vegan are panko breadcrumbs and then we end up having to grind them down. So flaxseed works just as well for this, so that's what we're using the flaxseed for. Okay, so before I start toasting up the spices, I just want to talk to you about white rice. This is a great alternative if you can't have rice or don't want rice in your diet. This is really excellent. It's much higher in protein. It's got more than double the protein per serving than rice. Also, it's lower in carbohydrates and has 5 grams of fiber, which is always good for the diet. So I'm going to cook this up. I'm going to add some saffron to it. I'm going to add a little orange zest to it to give it some nice Persian flavors, and basically that's going to be what we're putting our meatballs over. So I'm not going to show you how to make this, but it's basically you cook it just like you would rice. So I've got my pan heating, and I'm just going to add our spices to our pan here, and we're just going to let them toast a little bit. Shouldn't take more than a minute and a half. As you can start to smell them, you just don't want them to burn, because burning it would ruin it. Once they're done, I'm going to put them into our pestle and mortar, or mortar and pestle if you prefer, and I'm going to grind them up. Now I've got 2 of these. I have a stone one, which I prefer, but it's real heavy and it's kind of stuck in a corner right now, so I'm going to avoid using it. But we're going to toast these up. Oh, they're already smelling, and you can start to see there's starting a little smoke coming off of there. Exactly what you want. Almost ready. And I'm going to grind this up, and I'm going to put it into our meat mixture right now. Never used a mortar and pestle. I suggest you get one. You can use a coffee grinder that you don't use for anything but spices, but there's just something enjoyable about grinding these down by hand. Plus, it's a good workout. So this is ready to go into our bowl. Oh, it smells fantastic. And I'm going to pop that right in right now. I'm adding our spices now. Now the best way to do this is by mixing it by hand. As you know, my least favorite part of this job. If you find that your mixture is a little too dry, you can add a couple drops of veggie stock to this. I don't think it's going to be too dry. Normally, like when you're making a meatball, you might add an egg to it, but of course, yeah, and if you wanted to add a vegan egg to this, you could. The flax seeds kind of also add that element to it, which is why I'm not adding any additional egg type of replacement to this. Ugh. I'm giving Doris a break. She's done this the last couple times, so it's my turn to get my hands dirty, as it were. Just going to work it a little bit more. After all that shoveling from the snow, my arm is just literally ready to fall off. Okay. You just take a little bit of this. Okay, so basically you're going to want to roll these up about the size of a golf ball. If you have like a melon, not a melon scooper, like a little ice cream scooper, that'll work. So like this basic size fits into the palm of your hand. It's probably about, I would say, a little bit more than 1/8 of a cup. You know, I don't know. They say like 1.5 inches around. I'd say that's about close enough. So I'm going to make these up. We're going to start to fry them up. We're going to set those aside, make the sauce and the rice at the same time. So stick around. I'll show you the rest of this momentarily. My pan heating up. I've got some avocado oil in there. I'm going to add just a little bit more. Make sure the pan's nice and coated. We don't want these to stick. These have less fat than a meatball. So we're just going to start by laying these in here like so. Browning them on all sides. And while these are cooking, I'm going to prep our ingredients to make the sauce, and the rice is starting. Now you can see our meatballs are starting to brown real nicely, and that's exactly what you want. The one great thing about the Impossible burger meat is that it really does act like regular ground beef. It browns up real nice, has a flavor that is almost indiscernible to it. If you have friends who aren't vegan and you serve this, I highly doubt they would think that you were eating meat as opposed to them eating plants. That's how good this stuff is, and literally I swear by it. It's really excellent. So we're just going to let these continue to brown up, and once they're fully cooked, I'm going to take them out. I'm going to finish off the next batch, and then we are going to make the sauce for this. The rice is already off the stove. White rice is real easy to make. Takes basically 10 minutes from the time the water boils. So while the rest of our meatballs are browning, I'm getting ready to get the sauce put together. So all I need is, I got 1.5 cups of chickenless chicken broth, 2 tablespoons of gluten-free flour, and I'm going to be dicing up 1 shallot. And that's going to be the basis of our sauce. We're going to make it right in this pan. Right after this is done, we're going to scrape up those caramelized bits of Impossible meat, which will add additional flavor to this. And look at that color, just really nice. Alexa, turn off timer. But that's the kind of color you're looking for when you're browning your Impossible meatballs here. You want them nice and crispy, you know, with a little bit of bite to them on the outside. These are almost ready. So let me chop up my shallot. I'll be right back, show you how to make the sauce. The meatballs are ready to be removed. So I'm going to make the sauce, and we will be ready to plate very quickly. You'll see how quickly this comes together. Okay, so in my pan here, I am sauteing some shallots. You just want them to become translucent. We're basically making kind of a roux here. So in a moment, I'm going to be adding our flour to this. We're going to cook that down a little bit. I'm actually going to lower the heat because this pan is running hot for some reason today. So we're going to add our flour. There we go. And we just want it to just cook the flour so the flour flavor gets cooked out. You don't want to burn this. It smells great. And now I'm just going to slowly start to add our stock a little bit at a time. You may not need the whole cup and a half. As you can see, it's getting really nice and thick. Just keep adding it, let it come to a simmer. Now, depending on the type of brand of gluten-free flour you're using, you may have to adjust how much liquid you're putting in. I think we're just about ready here. We'll let that come to a simmer. All right, now we just have to add our meatballs back in, like so. Let them overfit. Come on, guys, you can make it. Make room, make room. All right, I'm going to shut the power off and just let these sit in there. Give them a quick turn. Oh yeah, this is beautiful. I wish I could flip this, but can't. I'm just going to use my fingers because I don't recommend using your fingers at home, but you know, when you burnt yourself as many times as I have, kind of lose your sense of pain receptors there. All right, that is beautiful. These are now ready to be plated up. We're good to go. I'm going to get my white rice, and we're going to get this sucker finished off for you. I just want you to see what a pinch of saffron will do to the white rice. It's a beautiful yellow color. It's got a real nice flavor of saffron. This is going to play well with the meatballs and the sauce, so I'm going to plate this sucker up right now. Here's the finished product. We got our Moroccan meatballs over some saffron white rice. I'm ready to dig in. You could top it off with some cilantro leaves, a little bit of saffron if you like, but I'm going to leave mine unadorned. So if you like these recipes, please click subscribe, hit the notification bell, leave a comment, give us a thumbs up, share with your friends. Follow us on Facebook, follow us on TikTok, follow us on Twitter, follow us on Instagram. Be healthy, be safe, be well, and we'll be back with more great recipes.